What happens when a father reveals a 15-year secret on live television, and that secret saved his son's life? Stop the tape. Dr. Phil's voice cut through the studio like a knife. The cameras froze. The audience held their breath. David Morrison, a 52-year-old father from Ohio, sat in the guest chair with tears streaming down his face, holding a sealed envelope that would change everything. What happened next shocked everyone in that room, and millions watching at home. 48 hours earlier, David had walked into the Dr. Phil studio carrying a burden that had crushed him for 15 years. His son, Michael, now 23, sat beside him, alive, healthy, successful. But no one knew the price David had paid to keep him that way. The show was supposed to be about fathers who made impossible choices. The producers thought they knew David's story, a single dad who'd worked 3 jobs to support his son after his wife abandoned them. Inspiring. Uplifting. Perfect for daytime television. They had no idea what David was really about to confess. The taping had started normally. Dr. Phil, in his signature navy suit, welcomed David and Michael to the stage. The audience applauded. The cameras rolled. Standard procedure. David, you wrote to us about an impossible choice you made when Michael was 8 years old. Dr. Phil began, his voice warm but probing. Tell us what happened. David's hands trembled. Michael reached over and squeezed his father's shoulder. It's okay, Dad. It's time. But as David started to speak, something in his voice made Dr. Phil lean forward. This wasn't the story the producers had prepared him for. When Michael was 8, David began, his voice breaking. The doctors told us he had leukemia. Aggressive. Fast-moving. He needed a bone marrow transplant within 3 months or... He couldn't finish the sentence. The audience gasped softly. This wasn't in the pre-interview notes. We tested everyone. David continued. Family members. Friends. Volunteers from the registry. Nobody matched. Nobody. Dr. Phil's expression shifted from professional empathy to genuine concern. David, what did you do? David pulled out the sealed manila envelope from his jacket pocket. His hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped it. Dr. Phil, I need to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone. Not even Michael. Michael's face went pale. The studio fell completely silent. Even the crew stopped moving. Dr. Phil looked at the envelope, then at David's face. 30 years of experience told him something unprecedented was about to happen. He made a decision. Stop the tape. The command echoed through the studio. Producers looked at each other in confusion. Dr. Phil never stopped production. Never. He stood up and walked directly to David, kneeling beside his chair, breaking every rule of television staging. The cameras kept rolling despite the order, capturing what would become one of the most powerful moments in the show's history. David, Dr. Phil said quietly, his voice dropping to a tone only microphones would catch. Whatever you're about to say, are you sure? Once it's out there, you can't take it back. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. David nodded, tears flowing freely now. Michael deserves to know. The world deserves to know. I'm tired of carrying this alone. Dr. Phil stood, addressing the studio and crew. We're going to hear what David has to say. No edits. No commercial breaks. This is real, and we're going to honor it. He returned to his chair, leaning forward, giving David his complete attention. I'm listening. David opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside were medical documents, yellowed with age. He held them but didn't look at them. He'd memorized every word 15 years ago. When no donor matched. David said, his voice steadier now, as if confession was giving him strength. I was desperate. I had 3 months. I had a dying son. And I had something nobody knew about. Michael looked confused. Dad, what are you talking about? David turned to face his son directly. What he said next would explain everything, and shatter everything. Michael, when you were born, Your mother and I had fertility issues. We tried for years. We went to specialists. We spent everything we had. Nothing worked. He paused, gathering courage for the next words. So we used a sperm donor. An anonymous donor from a fertility clinic in Cleveland. Your mother insisted we never tell you. She wanted you to think I was your biological father. I agreed because I loved you the moment I held you. You were my son in every way that mattered. The revelation hung in the air. Michael's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The audience was frozen. But then your mother left when you were 5. David continued, his voice cracking. And 3 years later you got sick. And when nobody matched. He stopped, overcome with emotion. Dr. Phil spoke gently. David, what did you do? David's next words would explain why he'd carried this secret like a stone in his chest for 15 years. I tracked down the sperm donor. It took me 6 weeks. I hired a private investigator. I spent money I didn't have. I broke confidentiality agreements. I could have been sued, arrested. I didn't care. He pulled out a photograph from the envelope. His name was Thomas Reed. He was 41 years old. He was a college professor. He was married with 2 daughters. Michael stared at the photograph, seeing his own eyes looking back at him from a stranger's face. I showed up at his house. David said. I told him everything. I begged him to get tested. I told him he had a biological son who was dying. What did he say? Dr. Phil asked quietly. The answer would break every heart in that studio. He said no. The collective gasp from the audience was audible even off camera. Michael's face crumbled. Dr. Phil's jaw tightened, a rare display of visible anger. He said, David continued, his voice hollow with remembered pain, that he donated sperm precisely to avoid this kind of situation. He had his own family. He didn't want to be involved. He told me to leave and never contact him again. David, Dr. Phil said, and there was steel in his voice now. How did Michael survive? Someone had to match. David looked at his son with infinite love and infinite sorrow. I went back 3 more times. Each time he called the police. Each time I begged. On the 4th visit, his wife answered the door. I told her everything. I showed her pictures of Michael in the hospital. I showed her what her husband's biological son looked like. He pulled out another document from the envelope. This one was crisp, official, life-changing. She tested herself without telling him. She wasn't a perfect match, but she was close enough. Close enough to save Michael's life. The revelation detonated through the studio. Michael stood up, stumbling, overwhelmed. Dr. Phil immediately signaled for staff assistance. She donated her bone marrow anonymously, David said through tears. She saved you, Michael. She saved you and asked for nothing. She made me promise never to contact them again, never to tell anyone what she'd done. She said her husband could never know. She said it was her choice, her secret, and she'd carry it forever. Michael dropped back into the chair, shaking. A stranger saved my life? Someone I've never met? Not a stranger, David whispered. Your biological father's wife. The stepmother you'll never meet. She gave you life twice, once through her husband's donation, and once through her own sacrifice. Dr. Phil did something he'd never done in 30 years of television. He stood up and walked off stage, signaling for producers to follow him into the wings. The studio could hear his voice. Get me contact information for Teresa Reed. Now. I don't care about confidentiality agreements. I don't care about legal issues. That woman saved a child's life and deserves to know he's alive and thriving. Make it happen. He returned to the stage 2 minutes later, composed but visibly moved. David, Dr. Phil said, sitting back down, you've carried this secret for 15 years. You've let Michael believe you were his biological father. You've protected a woman who asked to remain anonymous. Why tell the truth now? David's answer would make clear why this moment had been 15 years in the making. Because Michael got engaged 3 months ago. David said, his voice breaking completely. And his fiancée is pregnant. He's going to be a father. And he started asking questions about family medical history. He started asking if there was anything genetic he should know about. And I realized. He sobbed openly now. I realized I couldn't let him start his own family with lies. He deserved the truth. Teresa deserved recognition. And I couldn't carry this anymore. Michael stood up and pulled his father into an embrace so fierce that cameras struggled to capture it. The audience erupted, not in applause, but in collective weeping. Dr. Phil let the moment breathe. 15 seconds. 30. A full minute of television time devoted to nothing but a father and son holding each other, rebuilding their relationship in real time. Then Dr. Phil addressed the camera directly, speaking to the millions watching at home. What we've just witnessed is the complexity of love. David isn't Michael's biological father, but he is Michael's father in every way that matters. He worked 3 jobs. He hunted down a stranger. He broke laws. He carried a crushing secret for 15 years, all to save his son's life. He turned back to David and Michael. But here's what I want you both to understand. Teresa Reed made a choice too. She risked her marriage. She underwent a painful medical procedure. She saved a child she'd never met. That's heroism. Dr. Phil pulled out his phone, an unprecedented move during taping. He showed David the screen. My team just got off the phone with Teresa Reed. She's been following Michael's life from a distance for 15 years. She knows he graduated college. She knows he's getting married. She knows about the baby. He paused, letting emotion show through his professional composure. She wants to meet him. She said yes. The studio exploded. Standing ovation. Tears everywhere. Even the crew was crying. Michael's voice was small, overwhelmed. She wants to meet me? She wants to meet you. Dr. Phil confirmed. And David, she wants to thank you for being the father you've been. She said she's spent 15 years wondering if she did the right thing, if Michael was okay, if you were taking good care of him. Now she knows. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Dr. Phil pulled David and Michael to their feet, standing between them, one hand on each man's shoulder. Here's what I know after 30 years of doing this show, he said, and his voice carried the weight of decades of human stories. Family isn't always biology. Love isn't always straightforward. Heroism doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes it looks like a father working 3 jobs. Sometimes it looks like a woman donating bone marrow to a stranger's child. Sometimes it looks like keeping a secret so heavy it crushes you, just to protect the people you love. He addressed the audience directly. If you're watching this at home and you've made impossible choices, if you've carried unbearable secrets, if you've wondered if you did the right thing, this is for you. You're not alone. Your sacrifices matter. Your love matters. The epilogue would come 3 weeks later, though the audience didn't know it yet. Dr. Phil arranged a private meeting between Michael and Teresa Reed. No cameras. No production. Just a young man meeting the woman who saved his life, and a woman finally able to see that her sacrifice mattered. According to David, who was present at the meeting, Teresa held Michael's hands and said 7 words. I'm so glad you're still here. Michael responded with 5. Thank you for my life. Teresa brought photos, 15 years of newspaper clippings about Michael's accomplishments that she'd secretly collected. High school graduation. College acceptance. Recent engagement announcement. She'd been a silent guardian angel, watching from the shadows, never asking for recognition. The manila envelope that David had carried into the studio was later donated to the show's archives. Inside, along with the medical documents and photographs, was a handwritten note from Teresa to David, written 15 years earlier. Take care of him. Love him like he's yours. Because in all the ways that matter, he is. Tell him one day that someone he never met loved him enough to save him. Tell him that miracles come from unexpected places. And tell him that he was worth every risk. T. David had kept that note folded in his wallet for 15 years, reading it whenever he doubted himself, whenever the secret felt too heavy, whenever he wondered if he'd done the right thing. Dr. Phil's closing words, recorded after the taping, would be added to the end of the episode. This is why I do this show. Not for ratings. Not for fame. But for moments like this, moments when the truth, no matter how painful, becomes the bridge that connects broken pieces back together. David taught us that fatherhood is about choice, not chromosomes. Teresa taught us that heroism is often anonymous. And Michael taught us that the human capacity to forgive, to understand, to love beyond biology is infinite. He paused, looking directly at the camera. If this story moved you, don't just watch and move on. Reach out to someone you love. Forgive someone who made an impossible choice. Thank someone who sacrificed for you. Because that's how these stories live beyond this studio, through action, through love, through connection. The final frame showed the three of them, David, Michael, and Dr. Phil, standing together, the manila envelope on the table between them, no longer a secret but a testament. A reminder that sometimes the truth sets you free, even when you've spent 15 years trying to protect everyone from it. And somewhere in Cleveland, Teresa Reed watched the episode with her husband, who finally knew what his wife had done 15 years ago. According to David, Thomas Reed called him the day after the episode aired. He apologized. He thanked him. He asked if he could meet Michael, not as a father, but as the man who should have helped 15 years ago and was trying, however late, to do the right thing now. Dr. Phil arranged that meeting too. Off camera. Private. Healing. Because some stories don't end when the cameras stop rolling. Some stories become the beginning of something even more powerful than television can capture, genuine human transformation. The secret that saved a son had become the truth that saved a family. And Dr. Phil had been there to witness it all, not as a host, but as a human being who understood that sometimes, stopping the tape is the most powerful thing you can do.